Hi and welcome to this second video on the Smart Morph features found in Yamaha's version 2.5 of the MODX and the latest version of the Montage. In this video I'll be looking at creating a pad sound using Smart Morph, but I'll also be looking at how to animate the Super Knob to create timbral movement in the sound itself. If you haven't seen my earlier video on Smart Morph, I'd suggest checking that out first as I go over the process itself. I've put a link to that video in the top right hand corner. So let's create a pad sound using Smart Morph. I've begun by selecting Init Normal FMX as usual for creating a morphed patch. You can have a look at the earlier video if you're unsure how to do that, so I'm going to keep this brief. Next, let's select Smart Morph and select some sounds to morph between. So I'm going to go in the pad section, and the first sound I'm going to choose is Wax and Wane. Hit Enter, and then I'm going to select in part number 16. I'm going to go to Pads again. And let's go down and select FM Analogy Pad and hit OK. Now we're ready to hit the Learn button. So now we can look for a sweet spot between the sounds. So once you're happy with the sweet spot, exit Smart Morph by hitting the exit button, and let's select the patch itself, hit edit, and now we can add some effects. So in the effects section I'm going to add ensemble to the sound. So I want to go to chorus, ensemble detune, and I'm going to pick a soft wide preset. And I'm going to follow that with a phaser. So select phaser, VCM phaser, and for a preset I'm going to choose Deep Sweeper. Let's hear what that sounds like. Let's increase the reverb send a little bit. To about 30. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to experiment with the morph position and find a sound that I'm happy with and save it away. So I've experimented by remorphing that sound again a few times, looking for the sweet spot that suited me and saving it away. I've called it Phase Strings. That's the resulting patch. Don't forget you can of course play with the say the release time and get the sound, get the patch just the way you want it. Which is a good spot there, and I can resave the patch again. I'm going to use two layers for the sound, and before I begin the second part of the sound, we need to keep in mind that the first performance slot is reserved for Smart Morph creations. So we need to load the pad that we've just created into the second slot before we can begin working on slot 1 again. So let's do that now. So you know how to do this. We've got a performance category search, select Init Normal FMX and hit Enter. That takes us to our usual screen, but we now need to enter the pad that we've created earlier into slot number 2. So I'm going to hit the plus key on slot number 2, take it out of preset and select user, and you can see where is my pad called Phase Strings. There it is. Hit Enter. So now you'll see we have the phase string that we created earlier in slot number 2, and the sign that we're hearing is slot 1 ready to create the morphed FMX patch. So let's now select slot 1, select Smart Morph. Now at this stage we have loaded in it the sounds that we created before. Not quite sure why they've moved location, but nevertheless they're still there. So let's go to Job, let's go to Delete Parts 9 to 16, Delete. And they are now gone, and we've got a free, if I exit again, you'll see we've got a free means of creating, if I go to the edit page, you'll see everything is ready for us to start again afresh. The patch on slot number 2 hasn't been affected, if I solo that. It hasn't been affected by removing the constituent parts, but now we're ready to begin creating the other element of the pad sound in slot number 1. So I'm looking for something that's rich in movement and harmonics, and just to create a bit of variation, a bit of interest rather than just a phased string sound. So to begin with, I'm going to select the Smart Morph button, and I'm going to go to the SFX section and take it off user like so. Go to all, and so go back to SFX, and I'm going to select Moonbase as being the sound. If I hit enter, you'll hear why. Plenty of movement, harmonics, there's a bit of noise in the sound. So on part 16, I'm going to select another sound. Let's go to Synth Comp and select FM Atmos Decay. The reason I've done that is it's a traditional, if we have a listen, it's a traditional decaying sound. It'll give us a sort of halfway house, hopefully. So let's hit learn, and away we go again. So now it's time to look for some sweet spots in the sound. This is actually just the sort of thing I'm looking for, to give a bit of movement within the pad. So let's animate the super knob so that it varies the harmonics along the path. Say from the top left of the screen, we could go all the way to the bottom right, or we might find the interesting area is a small area here, which is actually what I found. So let's go to super knob. I've set a start point and an end point, so I want the sound to start over here, but I want at random times different values to be set somewhere along that path. So how do we actually begin to animate the knob by itself? From the Smart Morph page, select Motion Control and enable MS Master and Super Knob MS. Still no movement, but as soon as we press a key, you'll see that it starts to animate. Now you'll notice that the animation doesn't go all the way up to the end, so let's have a look at how we actually create our own unique animation patterns. Now there's a few ways you can do this, but I suggest starting with a preset. So let's go down to Knob, Auto, and begin by selecting Load Sequence. I'm going to select from the presets, and one of the ones I use probably the most often is this one, big triangle number 1. So I'll select that, and you'll see it's created, the speed has sped up because we've got a different pattern now. It's created this pattern here, but let's edit it to our own use. The reason this is quite useful is that I find if we reduce the cycle down from 16 down to say 4, you can effectively create your own LFO if you like. If I also select bipolar, we can select this value and move the, if you like, this aspect of the waveform, to use the LFO analogy. But you'll see that we're still, the knob itself is still not animating all the way. That's because the amplitude is set to 64. If we up that to 127, you'll see it now goes to the full extremes. So you can experiment each of these 16 steps, and there are 8 different sequences you can have different values. You can also call up presets here if you haven't done this before. Let's go to Sigmoid, hit enter. You'll see it's now called up a different pattern for each of the green sections. So that way you can create your own patterns, which can give you some very interesting results. You can also obviously vary the number of cycles. There's a smooth setting, and you can adjust the speed on the other page. The sequence I found though that works with this particular patch is this particular one, which you can find by going to Load Sequence under Presets, and there's a down and up step. Now if I go to Edit Sequence, you'll see that the amplitude is 64. That's actually fine in this case because I don't want it to go to the full extremes of the other patch, and I'm leaving it on 16 cycles so it steps through each of the 16 stages smoothly. And so let's exit from that now, and the effect that we get is rather like this. Now the reason I haven't left the speed at 64 and left synchronization off is that each time I play the key I'll be at a slightly different part of the of the motion sequence. So that way I'm getting slightly different results for each key to save monotony. If it was set to re-trigger each time I played a key, or it was set to re-trigger at every bar, it would become sort of repetitive. I want to keep that random element. So let's now blend it back in with the original patch and see what the end result is. So I'll exit from here and we'll set solo back off again. And let's adjust our levels so we get a good level. You can, of course, again adjust the attack and the decay time before we save the end result away. And let's have a listen to the result that we've got. I've deliberately avoided any of the AWM patches that use samples for the purpose of this exercise, but don't forget you've got another 14 slots left to fill in this performance, so you can easily build up huge pad sounds on your MODX using not only FM synthesis but AWMs, which is a combination of samples. You could load up your own samples and you really could create quite huge pad sounds using your MODX. So to illustrate that, here's one I created earlier, with 3 AWM sounds including a choir sound and an analog style pad layer. I'll set a drum loop going in Reason Rack, which is now available as a VST plugin, and just noodle over the top with a sound from Zebra. Well, I hope these videos have encouraged you to try and create your own patches using Smart Morph. Many thanks to those of you who've subscribed to the channel. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, as this helps to create new videos free of charge, and by selecting the bell icon you'll be notified of new releases. So until the next one, thanks for watching.